Welcome to Connecting the Dots, a non-traditional legal program with your host and trusted advisor, Liz Myska, your guide through the web of life's dilemmas.
Welcome to another edition of Connecting the Dots. I'm your host, Liz Myska, and today I have a privilege of meeting for the very first time my new friend Mona, all the way from Boston, who is also a VIP, a visually impaired person. Welcome, Mona.
Oh, I'm so honored to be here. Thank you for having me. I like being a VIP. I like this.
Well, good.
In the other sense, too.
So we were just getting to know one another, but let me just give a little background. So I encountered you a couple of months ago when I tuned in to a Zoom program that the Massachusetts Association for the Blind and Visually Impaired were featuring transportation issue dilemmas, and they featured you.
Oh, that's how you knew about
Yes.
it? The BU?
The BU transportation, yes. And
thing? Okay.
so the name of your I don't know, your creation is Planes, Trains, and Canes. So tell us about how that came about.
Okay, so for a little bit of background, it's my side project. I'm actually a professor, right, at Northeastern University in bioengineering. But in the process of applying to become faculty, I was really stressed out. I was like, you know what? I'm going to apply to this Holman Prize. So a few years ago, I was actually invited to be a judge for the Holman Prize put out by the Lighthouse of the Blind in San Francisco. Okay. And I was a judge, and I was like, wow, this is an amazing opportunity. That's when they give an award up to $25,000 for any blind person around the world who has an ambitious idea. So I was a judge the first year that they set it up, and I was like, this is amazing. You know, I met through their application a bunch of cool ideas that blind people were doing. And I remember going home that year and being like, what is it that I would do if I ever wanted to win one myself? So in the midst of applying to become faculty, because I've only been faculty now for not even 2 years at Northeastern, I applied to the Holman Prize, and I proposed the idea of Planes, Trains, and Canes, which is a YouTube travel series that shows a blind person, that would be me, traveling on my own. Granted, there was a camerawoman, using public transportation in 5 different cities around the world. So it's planes, trains, and canes, the different tools we use. See? Anyways, I just held up my cane.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for the visual.
Anytime.
So you won the Holman Prize, I take it.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. That goes without saying.
I wouldn't be able to do it without it.
Oh, my gosh. So when you applied for this prize, had you conceived of what you were going to do, or you're like, well, it's not likely I'm going to win, so let me just dabble, or did you are you an organized planning type of person? So you're like, well, here's where I would like to go. How did that?
I mean, okay, so that's a good question. But the way you apply is first you have to submit a video on YouTube, right?
Okay.
And you have to get people to kind of watch it and like it. And so I was like, you know what? I want to submit something creative. So I did a little video of me traveling to a new place in Minneapolis, which is where I was living at the time. And it was to a rock climbing gym. So we did that video, and if you make it past that point, then they ask for an actual written proposal. And so I had mapped out the 5 different cities and the logic behind them. And yeah.
So, all right. So why did you pick those certain cities? I'm curious about the rock climbing. So it sounds like you're a very active person, and you know.
In theory.
Yeah. Well, okay. but it sounds like, your lack of sight doesn't hinder you in terms of, I'm going to do this. That's the attitude that I'm getting from you. So
I got one life to live. What am I going to live it at home? I like being out. I mean, there's nothing wrong with living at home, but
right. So this rock climbing. So back to the Minneapolis and the rock climbing wall. Did your video show you getting to, was it a familiar place that you knew, and so you knew your route? Because
No.
okay, all right.
No. It was a completely new route. Like, I had never been to this rock climbing gym. I just like looked it up using my Google Maps. Actually, in the video, it's pretty funny. It shows me like struggling with just Google, and like getting on the bus and trying to figure out which bus and the train or whatever. And then eventually getting to the rock climbing gym, and then rock climbing for the first time. Was it my first time? It's really hard to rock climb as a blind person because you're like hanging by 3 limbs trying to search for the 4th handle, and you're just like, it's a whole thing.
And were people saying,
I'm so slow.
It's over there.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, where?
And they didn't know how to describe, right? They didn't know how to describe, okay. And so, but again, that didn't deter you. You're like, okay, all right, so on to something else. So back to why the cities that you picked. And probably you should name the cities that you picked.
Oh, yes. So I chose Johannesburg, London, Istanbul, Singapore, and Tokyo. So some of it was strategic, some of it because I saw something on TV and I wanted to go there. That would be Singapore. So Johannesburg, because I wanted to go to a South African, like I wanted to go to a Southern Hemisphere place, and I had never been to South Africa. Okay. That was Johannesburg for me. And then London is because I have been to London multiple times before, and I kind of wanted to show the culture of London, and it came through. So that was really cool. Istanbul, I wanted somewhere in the Middle East, something unique, but I also wanted a place where I don't speak the language, and that was Japan also. So I don't speak Turkish or Japanese. And then Japan, because I had heard amazing things about Tokyo and the accessibility on their public transportation, and it was like on point. Mm-hmm. And Singapore, just because of the Marina Bay Sands Hotel.
You always wanted to go there. Is that what?
Yeah, I saw the infinity pool. Like it's like up high on the top floor. Yeah, and they're supposed to have good transportation. But it was the infinity pool.
Okay, all right. So, because I saw a portion of, I guess I saw like a trailer for Planes, Canes, and Trains, and it started out in Tokyo, and I remember you saying, "Oh my gosh, there's different sounds for north, south, east, west." It was so much laid out for people to be active and walking, and it didn't matter whether you were sight impaired or mobility impaired. Everybody. So talk about that, because I think if I'm not scene stealing here, that was your top place.
It was between Tokyo and Istanbul, actually.
Really?
For me.
Okay, all right.
Tokyo, because of the technology, and that is on point, like what you said, right? Like there were sounds to cross the street, east-west versus north-south. There were sounds for different trains. Like you can stand there, and based on the different train line that went through, it had a different jingle. And I was like, what? So like I took the Marunouchi line a lot, and I had it nailed, like that's a Marunouchi line. Like I feel like in Japan, it became so comfortable. Like it was so easy to navigate. I didn't feel like I needed my sight. There were cane guides everywhere. Those are little grooves in the ground for blind people to use to navigate. So I can literally follow a cane guide from the train all the way like up the stairs, like to the outside to the bus stop. Like, and it would literally take you to right where the door of the bus stop opens. Of the bus open. It was insane.
So I have a question, because here in Worcester we have a cane guide, and at the hub, which is the transit authority, and my cane oscillates. My cane goes back and forth, so a cane guide is not helpful for me. When you use your cane, do you swing it back and forth, or is it just stationary?
So I use it back and forth when I need to, but for the cane guide, I just keep it straight.
Okay.
Because I'm trusting that it's just like, people are moving out of the way, or that it's a clear path.
Okay.
While I follow it with the cane guide.
Okay.
And it was awesome. It just literally took me to the door of a bus when I needed it.
Okay.
To.
Yeah, and
on the sidewalks, they even had temporary ones for construction.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
And so how long were you in each of these places? A couple
Like
days or
4 days, an
okay.
average of 4.
And when you arrived, had you like prearranged like, okay, I'm like this is where I'm staying, so this is the area around which I'm going to explore? Or was it more random than that? It's just like, well, let's see where.
No, I definitely booked my hotels in advance,
Yep.
but nothing else I really prepped. I
Okay.
might have just Googled, oh, for me to get to the hotel, I had to, get out of the airport, take this line, this train line, then this train line, right? Because my rules were public transportation. So I couldn't just take an Uber immediately.
Right.
That's kind of like cheating the system for my particular show. Like I wanted to use public transportation. So it was always like there were 3 pieces to the show. First, when I landed, and then from the airplane to the hotel,
Okay.
then, to a restaurant and maybe to one activity. And that was kind of the breakdown. And usually each city had 2 parts to the episode. The first part was just getting to the hotel. It was like a whole adventure to just get to the hotel.
Right.
Yeah.
Were you so was there jet lag involved in this too? Did you find like, oh my gosh, like I'm like totally pooped out here. I don't want to move.
For sure. So when I landed in different cities, I had different. That's another thing I wanted to push through, is that to each their own, right? I really didn't want to push one way of doing things. So sometimes, like I landed in London, I didn't want to get the help that that they provide at the airport. I wanted to do it on my own. I had the energy. But when I landed in Japan, I was so tired. I was like, yeah, I'll take the help. So like it's just depending on my mood, depending on how I was doing. I did things differently. So
when you say the help, so did somebody approach you? Did somebody how did that work out? I mean,
so when you travel, like in airports, you can literally ask for assistance,
Yes.
like in advance, and they will basically take care of you from point A to point B, right? So they would have taken care of me, to the train station or to an Uber or something like that. Like
and
from
you're
the
saying
plane.
like a cited guide?
Yes, a sighted guide.
A
Yeah.
cited guide. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And honestly, I do that most of the time. But I wanted to try out different things, and so I didn't. And in London, it's really fascinating. Usually, you wait forever, and it's like 5 stops. It's not one person all the way from the plane to the outside, so to speak. It's like you go through different transfer points,
right.
and so it usually takes an hour to get out. But when I just followed the crowds in London, I was out in like 20 minutes.
Really?
It was so fast. I was like, what? Is this close? Yeah, like I felt like it was like the biggest thing. Yeah, it was really like a revelation for me.
And your camera person,
Yeah.
Was she filming? Like as soon as you alighted from the plane,
As soon as we landed, yeah.
okay.
And then the second she filmed, like I left her, and I actually didn't know where she was. Like I didn't have a way to connect with her. I just trusted that she followed me, because really we wanted to emulate me traveling alone.
Right.
And we also had to like navigate the fact that people were like staring at her, like, why are you pointing a camera at a blind
Exactly.
person? So she tried to like look like a tourist,
inconspicuous.
Like, yeah,
Right.
like really far away, and sometimes I didn't know if she was with me or not, but I would be like, I hope you're with me right now. Are you seeing this?
And
Like,
well, there was like a snippet that I saw where you're looking around wildly, and again, that may have been in London, because none of the traffic is yielding, and you're trying to listen to the traffic sounds to be, to cross,
Yeah.
and you're hesitant because nobody seems to be paying any attention to you, and that obviously is heart thumping for we visually impaired people. It's like,
I think even sighted people.
Yeah, well, yeah, right. Well, I think also, and I've been to London, I think because the traffic is coming from a different place, so you're, even if you can see, you're looking in the wrong direction, and then all of a sudden you're hearing beep.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this happens to you, but this happens to me, on the streets of Worcester, where people honk at you, but you're not sure. Does that mean go? Does that mean stay? Or people may be gesturing to you, which of course you can't see. Or people may be saying, go, go. And it's kind of like, are they telling me to cross? Or are they telling me,
Yep.
you know, are they talking to someone else? It's so discombobulating. So you end up not doing anything at all, just staying in place. Now that brings up, did you find any place that people like saw you and then they just kind of like scooped you up and brought you across the street, or that didn't happen?
I don't know about scoop me up. I mean, there were different kind of vibes to each city, you know? I feel like in Turkey, I called that episode The Power of Human Connection. So I was really worried about not being able to speak the language.
Right.
But I learned you don't need to speak the language to connect with people in Turkey. Like, really, at one point, I was really tired. I was trying to find the hotel. I didn't realize I was so close to it. And I just stood there. And I think I looked a little despondent, you know? I was just like, oh.
Like, I'm never going to get there.
I was like, Hyatt? Like, I just said Hyatt. Like, that's it. And then this guy who was a taxi driver literally stopped his car, got out, started speaking to me. And I was like, I don't understand Turkish. Hyatt. And he just, like, tapped on my left arm to indicate it's on my left side. And then he's like, 10 meters. I was like, okay. Like, and that was phenomenal to me, you know? Like, that was amazing. This guy just stopped. He was driving his taxi.
Right, but he saw you, and obviously he saw, some degree of distress. Yes.
And then I also, like, in Turkey, there was a lady who asked if I needed help. I said, no, thank you. I was left alone. You know, like, I felt a little bit more heard, which was an interesting experience because the language is not common.
Right.
While in other places, there was a lot of, like, how could you be out by yourself? Right. You're blind. Like, this is
dangerous.
And I'm like, I'm just standing here. Like, how is this dangerous? I literally got comments on YouTube for the London episode that I was selfish, that I'm putting everybody in danger for riding the train.
Oh my
and I'm
gosh.
like, wow, okay. Like, what do you think is going to happen in this London? And they're like, the London Underground is a monster. I'm like, guys, it's really not that scary.
Right.
Just a train under the ground. I don't know.
Well, you reminded me years ago, again, here in the United States, I had flown into Boston late night and stayed over in a hotel in Saugus, and then took a cab to South Station because I was going to take the train back here to Worcester. So it was early in the morning, and the cab let me out, and I had never approached South Station from that vantage point. So I'm like, well, I see a door, I'm going in. And then I got into South Station, and I was discombobulated because nothing looked familiar.
Yeah.
So this passerby with luggage came in, and she said, do you need help? And I said, I'm trying to get to the train track. And I knew that the bus station was up above. Anyway, she brought me over to the MBTA booth. Yeah. And the guy behind the booth said, is talking to her, not to me. And he's like, she shouldn't be out by herself. And this woman who was just a good Samaritan, she said, I'm highly offended that you're talking about this person who's standing right in front of you. Like, she shouldn't do this and she shouldn't do that, like, you know? And so that when you were recounting your London experience, I felt incensed. And it was really interesting to me that this woman was advocating for me. And she, yes, she was. And she said she wanted his name. She wanted to report him. She says, because you are not, this is your job.
Employee.
Yeah.
Like,
this is your
job. What is it that you're supposed to be doing here if not helping travelers? Like, I don't
exactly.
understand.
But again, he wanted to lecture on why a blind person should not be attempting to exercise.
How you'd feel if you ever lost his eyesight.
Exactly. So your story was very reminiscent of.
I never experienced that here.
Okay.
Like, so it was like shocking for me in London. It was, you know what I mean? It was like, it was culture shock. And then I sat down with a guy who had won the Holman Prize like a year before. His name is Red Cell, and I was like, hey, Red, like, is it just me? Like, is it like, or does it feel like this is like just the common culture here that for me not to be really out and about as a blind person. And he goes, no, it's not just you. Like, I think he also had a eye condition that hit later on in life.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, when I went to San Francisco, because they fly you out there for the Holman Prize, he's like, I was shocked. People kind of leave you alone until you ask for help. He's like, here, people just like drag you across the street, even if you didn't ask to be dragged across the street.
Right.
I was like, okay, interesting.
Yeah, no, that, and the reason I asked you is that's happened to me, that I would be, again, here in Worcester, and I would be waiting either for someone to, to join me, pick me up, or in other words, I wasn't close to, I didn't think I was close to the crosswalk. And then all of a sudden somebody would like swoop in from behind me and like pick up my elbow, and then all of a sudden like we're being marched towards the street, and it's no. And and again, they think that they're doing right, that they're doing right by you, but they didn't ask you. And that's the first tenet of when I'm teaching individuals sighted guide techniques. You need to ask, and you need to ask. Oh
yeah, no, for sure. And that's just basic. I think, look, it comes down to this. Unfortunately, we are seen as the other, right?
Yes.
A lot of times we're seen as the other, but really what it comes down to is human connecting. And
Absolutely.
Human connection comes with communication.
Yes.
Communicate with me. I'll communicate with you, and there's nothing, don't overthink it, because some people they become flustered, they don't know what to do. Just ask, just communicate.
Right.
We're all humans here together, and I'm not gonna bite your head off for asking.
Right.
I mean, maybe some people might, but I will.
Right.
and then I have a little video that I created, 3 things not to do when you see a blind person walking down the street. And I present it in a comedic fashion, but all of them relate to being grabbed, getting my cane grabbed, getting grabbed.
Oh yeah. Have you had that too?
Oh yeah.
Somebody picks up the bottom of your cane.
By the cane.
Yeah, right. Leading you by the cane, right?
They're like, well, at least I'm not touching her. But, yeah, but I need my cane on the ground.
That's my leg. Yes. But that happened to me at a bus station, Port Authority in New York.
Yeah.
I went into the Hudson News and the person behind the counter, I asked for a soda. He comes out from around the counter, picks up the bottom of my cane and leads me over to the drink machine, and it's like,
communicate, just communicate.
Right? It's like, I was so shocked. I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. I mean, I understand it, because they're just they're like, I don't know how to communicate.
Exactly. And I don't want to touch you. I mean, and that's
it's like, okay, I respect that you don't want to touch me, but just left, right, that's it.
Sorry, I have to relay this too. So I've been asked to train police recruits here in Worcester. So what I do is, and it's an amphitheater, which is probably very similar to your, when you're teaching at Northeastern. Yeah. So I pass blindfolds down, and I say, okay, in the first row, the 4th person, I want you to put the blindfold on. On the second row, I want it to be the 2nd person, blah, 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 blah. So a portion of the audience is blindfolded. And then I ask for a recruit who's not blindfolded to come up to the front of the room, and I say, okay, here's the scenario. And so the police recruit cadet is standing next to me, usually to my left, because I'm right-handed, so I use the cane in the right hand. And I said, so here's the scenario. You see me, I'm blind. I'm coming down the street. You recruit you're now a police officer, and we're in a construction zone, and I know it's a construction zone because I can hear all the the equipment. And I said, okay, so tell me what you would do. So the recruit turns to the audience and he says, well, I would say, and I said, no, you got to talk to me. You got to talk to me. I'm the one you got to communicate to. So he turns and looks at me and he's like, well, I would say, I said, you got to say, you got to talk to me. And he's like, oh. He's like, ma'am, may I help you? And I'm like, who are you? And he's like, oh, I'm a police officer. And I'm like, okay. It's like, so first thing, you have to identify yourself. You have to say, ma'am, I'm Officer Krumke, and I am here, and I see you are a white cane user. I said, why do you say that? Well, I know that I'm a white cane user, but you are identifying to me what it is that you're saying, oh, she's blind. She needs help. I'm like, yes. So then so he stands there, and I'm like, okay, so what's next? And he's like, and I said, because I knew he didn't want to touch me. and he didn't want me to touch him. And I'm like, well, this is going to involve human contact, because you're going to guide me. I have to, we got to hold on to one another. So it's just so awkward because particularly police officers, they're used to like, again, grabbing. And I also say this about medical people too. Nurses and doctors, they grab you. They don't explain. They just, like, oh, you're here at the doctor, so I'm going to take your pulse. And they just grab your arm. It's like, oh, you need to tell me what you're doing. You need to ask me. Yeah. So anyway, sorry. I didn't want to trample on what you were saying, but I'm sure you have had similar instances where there's the uncertainty, and we expect the uncertainty. And we have to think in terms of, well, why would you know this? And when I'm training people, it's like, well, why would you know? You don't know what you don't know. Why would you know this? I didn't know this. So I'm getting a haptic clue here. Yes. So I think we need to wrap. So what would you what was your biggest takeaway from the experience? You like to travel.
Freedom is a state of mind. Yes.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
No, freedom is a state of mind. So it almost took me to travel to kind of let go. A lot of times we put the pressures on ourselves to reach a certain expectation. But when you travel and you learn, hey, it's okay that I got lost, or it's okay that I don't make this flight because I'm trying to do something on my own, you release yourself. And then you realize, actually, I don't need to do this just in travel. I can do this in my life. I could do this in my own backyard. I can do this in my own office. And the freedom that you feel after that is unbelievable. That was my biggest takeaway.
Wow. That is super profound and so eloquent. Thank you. No, thank you. No, thank you.
Definitely check out planesshadesandcanes.com and planesshadesandcanes on YouTube. I always forget to do this. We want subscribers. We want people to, support us. We would love to do another season.
Are there upcoming programs?
If we get more subscribers.
Okay, all right. Okay.
I hope so,
Well, Mona, I would love, we should do Planes, Trains, and Canes, in the U.S. too. And
oh, yeah. Boston's on the next.
Okay, all right.
Boston.
I'm in.
Excellent.
So thank you so much for being my guest today. I really enjoyed it. And it's great to meet you in person, even though, again, we can't see one another.
Yeah, but the energy is there. It's
Absolutely.
Really nice.
Absolutely.
It's really nice to meet you too, and thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Join me next time for another edition of Connecting the Dots.
Please note that the information provided in this show is not a substitute for consulting with an experienced local attorney and receiving counsel based on the facts and circumstances of a particular transaction. To contact Lizbeth, email her at Lizbeth@elizabethlmyska.com or call her office at 508-753-7681. We're online at connectingthedots.lawyer. Executive producers, Liz Myska and Jack Peacock. Producers, John Medberry and Bill Hamilton. A production of Elizabeth L. Myska, JD, LLM, in association with Compliments.